Okay, it's 6:30 on the dot. We're going to go ahead and get started. We'll probably have some people coming in a little late, so we'll just kind of deal with that for a short time. Um, Welcome. My name is Jerry Holman, and I am the General Manager for Harris County Freshwater Supply District 61. I will be moderating and facilitating tonight's meeting. We are glad you are here tonight. Cypress Town Hall meeting, converting from groundwater to surface water. What a wonderful facility that we have tonight. Thank you to the Cypress Methodist Church and their staff members for always helping our community and allowing us to use their facility tonight. If you are an elected official, please stand and be recognized. If you're an elected official, a board member, please stand and be recognized. I know we have a few board members here tonight. Very good. Thank you all for coming. You'll need to know this stuff to answer to your constituents. I want to also do a special recognition to our North Harris County Regional Water Authority District 3 board member and the president of the North Harris County Regional Water Authority, Melissa Rao. Melissa, please stand up for us. Thank you, Melissa, for all the work you do. We appreciate you. Thank you. Please silence your phones and keep any conversations to a minimum while the session is ongoing. Please quietly leave the room should you need to take a call. There are cookies and coffee and water in the front entry. Please eat all you can. We don't need those around our office. The restrooms are located, if you go out the doors, they're back to the right here. Our program will consist of a 30-minute PowerPoint presentation followed by a 30-minute panel discussion. We will then have up to 20 minutes of questions and answers from the audience. At this time, I'd like to do the introductions to our two speakers. First, I'd like to introduce June Chang. He is the General Manager for North Harris County Regional Water Authority. And Brian Thomas, Area Manager for Infomart, who's the operator for the authority. With that, we'll go ahead and get started with our PowerPoint presentation. June?
Thank you, Jerry, for the opportunity, and thank you for everybody coming in. This is a great opportunity to showcase what the authority is, what do we do, and in fact, the most often asked question I have is, who are you guys, and why I'm paying you fees? So that's why I'm here, try to explain all that. Before I start, I'd like to thank Ms. Amber Basson. Please stand. She's our program manager, with Corolla Engineers, and she helped me put this presentation together. So, and all the work that's going on by the authority. We actually have very small staff. We try to be effective and efficient. So we only have 9 staff total. So we rely on the support of the consultants and the contractors to complete our work. So again, people always ask, who are you guys and why are you there? And we didn't ask for you guys. And why we're paying you fees. So, we are North Harris County Regional Water Authority, and it's created by the House Bill 2965 in 1999. And then the voters in the authority boundary voted in January 2000, confirmed that, and we have a 5-member board with five single districts, and their term is stacked in 4 years terms. And we have a service area of 335 square miles. We're serving about 766,000 people In fact, we are the second largest regional water supplier in the region, behind the city of Houston. There are total 4 water authority. They all called the regional water authority. We are the largest by far, serve the north part of the Harris County. And we are all regional water supplier, and I will explain what that means later. And all of our capital improvement project, that's what the CRP stand for, is funded by revenue bonds or the SWIP fund. That's a state funding specifically designed to fund water projects. The advantage of use the state SWIP fund is they have a low interest, which saves a lot of money for the authority, which in turn for the ratepayers. And from the inception to now, just by borrowing money from the state under SWIFT program, rather than go out to the market to get the regular bonds, we already saved more than $200 million. So that is a very advantageous program. We have no taxing authorities. All of our cost is based on fees collected. And the fee is set on the cost based. Whatever the service cost, that's where our fee is based on. We are a non-profit governmental agency, so we do not make any profits. Next. So all that said, people still ask why we need you guys. And we didn't ask for this, and we are perfectly fine using our own wells. And now you come in and all of a sudden we start paying, in addition to our mud, groundwater pumpage fee, we start paying your fee as well. Why? Well, have you heard unfunded government mandate? That's why. And the state in 1975 created this entity called Harris-Galveston Subsidence District. And that agency is created for the sole purpose of regulating groundwater pumpage. So if you have always used the groundwater, things are gonna change. Well, things already changed since 2010. We are in, they divide the whole Harris County in 3 zones. Zone 1 converted a long time ago. Those are the coastal areas, and they already converted to 100% surface water. There's a zone 2, mainly is within city of Houston. They have converted in 1995 and 2010. So for the zone 3, which is outskirts and mainly the northern part of the Harris County, which is where we are, that listed schedule you see on the slide is what their rule says. So for whatever we're using, the residents using in the zone 3 area, only 70% can come from the groundwater. 30% has to come from, we say here surface water, the definition is alternative water. So that alternative water can be either surface water or reused water. And so here's the question, here's the problem. We don't have surface water. None of you own a lake, right? None of the mud owns a lake. So in order to meet this regulatory mandate, which is unfunded by the state, all of you have to chip in the money to make this happen. So next, please. So we look at this map. This is the Houston area, or greater Houston area map. We look around, there's only 3 lakes. It's designated as a surface water supply lake. On your left is Lake Conroe. On the top is the largest lake, Lake Livingston, and that little tiny one on the lower part is Lake Houston. And City of Houston's water supply source come from all those three lakes. They own water rights in those three lakes. Nobody else. So City of Houston basically has the monopoly. And for us to be able to convert, we have to buy surface water from Houston, which because they have the monopoly, we don't have any leverage, right? So that's why the authority was created. Because if you are individual mud, if you go into Houston and say, I want to buy surface water from you, guess what the answer you will get? Go away, right? So back in 1999, after numerous negotiations with the city of Houston and resulted no positive results, the area residents, some among you, went to the legislation and say, we need to create this authority. And if we can create those authorities, now we have a greater leverage with the city. They have to listen to us because we become a state agency as well. So that's how the authority was created in 1999. And so some of the question I heard is, we didn't ask for you. Yes, you did. That's exactly what you asked for, and legislation granted your wish. And this is how and why the authority was created. And then the question is, okay, you get City of Houston's attention. How do we get surface water from the city? Well, the city owns the water rights from all those three lakes, but they only take water from Lake Houston. And their water rights in Lake Houston is limited. So in the first phase for the year 2010, the authority was able to negotiate a contract with the city to buy water from the city from the existing water rights from Lake Houston. And we also purchased our share of the transmission line and water treatment plant capacity from the city. And therefore, we can get the water from the Lake Houston, treat it at the plant, whereas the little tiny dot that says Northeast West Water Purification Plant. That's what NEWPP stand for. So we bought capacity at the plant. That plant is small, 80 MGD plant. We bought 31, and we bought our raw water rights, not rights. We bought the right to use the raw water from the city, and we also purchased the share of the capacity in the transmission line to get the water from Lake Houston, treat it at the plant, then convey those treated surface water into our service area. On the slides, that's where the shaded little blue area is the North Harris County Regional Water Authority service area. Next. So the city only have the capacity to sell to us to meet the 2010 demand. In order to meet the 2025 requirement, if you recall the early percentage requirement, 2010 is only 30%. By 2025, we're supposed to switch to 60%. Well, that's a lot of surface water. The city of Houston no longer have enough water rights in Lake Houston. So they have to build what they call interbasin transfer to transfer the water from Lake Livingston to Lake Houston. Why it's called an interbasin transfer? Because Livingston is in its own River Basin. And Lake Houston is within what they call San Jacinto River Basin. So when you have transfer between the two river basins, that's called interbasin transfer. So in order for us to do that, and also there's a lot of more water amount of water we will need. Their existing plant is not going to cut it. And there's also not enough transmission line to convey the water. So even the north alone, we cannot afford that. So what we did is we partnered with all 4 regional water authorities, which you see the logo on the slides. So it's the City of Houston, the North Harris County Regional Water Authority, the West Regional Water Authority, Central Regional Water Authority, and North Fort Bend Water Authority. So all 5 parties get together. We enter the contract to do all of those. Next, please. So the first project we did is this, what we call Lewis Bayou Interbasin Transfer Project, which convey the raw water from Trinity River on the upper right corner through a pipe and canal, the combination of the two, to the lower left corner, which is Lake Houston. Now, what you wonder why it's called a Lewis Bayou is because you see almost parallel creek there. It's the natural Lewis Bayou. But Lewis Bayou is no longer enough to convey this amount of water, and the environmental group won't allow us to do that, so we have to build the pipes and the canal, which make it much, much more expensive. So that's the first project. That's just bring the water into where it's supposed to be, which is Lake Houston. Next slide, please. Once we brought water into Lake Houston, you can see we expanded the northeast plant, which is the picture you saw now on the lower part of the slides. And then the left up corner is the Lake Houston intake pump station, which basically suck all the water from Lake Houston into the plant to be treated. And then on the up right corner is the intake pump station at the Trinity River. And as you can imagine, all of those are very expensive. The northeast treatment plant expansion cost is $2 billion. So also I want to point out, if you're talking about people not happy about have to use surface water, imagine the people live in around Lake Houston. They have a beautiful lake. Now all of a sudden this thing stuck in the middle of the lake, and their boat has to go around that outside of what we call the safe zone. So imagine how many unhappy residents around Lake Houston when we built this. Next, please. Once you build the plant and you have the raw water to be treated, you still have to convey the water from that treatment plant, which is on the east side of the Harris County to where we are, which is central and the west part of the Harris County. So the North Harris County partnered with City of Houston to build what we call Northeast Transmission Line. And remember, there's other partners. They have a different location for their pump stations, so the West and North Fort Bend partnered together. They built their separate transmission line. So the city and the North and the Central built this together, this Northeast transmission line. And there are 13 segments, and as you may see that, I don't know if it's large enough for you to see. The first section is a 180-inch, very large pipe. The next 10 segment is 108-inch pipes. And then One segment is 66-inch and one segment is 54-inch. All huge water lines. Next, please. So once the water get to the end of the transmission line, it enters into the North Authority service area. But we have to build water lines, which we call distribution system, to send the water to each individual MUD customers. We are the wholesaler, we are not retail water provider. So we send to the MUD, and then the MUD provide a service to retail customers. So this map shows different color, and I can just, point out the blue water line in the middle. That's built for the 2010 conversion requirement. And then the green and yellow line on top, those are for the 2025, which is 60% conversion. And since this particular town hall meeting is targeted for people who live in this particular area, we have a map, or two maps actually, showing what we have built to specifically serve you guys. Next, please. So this one is what we call Project 31, which I know means absolutely nothing to you guys. But if you live in any of those MUD, I don't know if you can see any of the, no, there's no way you can see that. Timber Lake, and I can't even read on my page,
Correct.
so never mind.
Let me help you there. Just Freshwater Supply District 61, Timberlake, MUD 69, Harris County MUD 70, Harris County 168, Harris County MUD 222, Harris County 248, and Reed Road 2.
Yeah, so if you live in any of those areas, those water line under Project 31 is specifically designed and built for you guys. And if you want to, well, you actually probably already saw the activities and they're already completed by now. So, but if you want to know exactly where they are, what size, please contact our office. We can provide you all the information you need. Next page, please. And here are some more MUD districts, and that's under what we call the Project 35. And they are also designated to serve those MUD on this map. And then, Jerry, can you help me with those MUD as well?
I mentioned some of those earlier,
Oh,
but
okay.
Northwest Harris County MUD 29, Northwest MUD 9, MUD 10, MUD 11, and so on. Reed Road. This is really kind of in the 290, 1960 area in Cypress.
Thank you. So, as you can imagine, to build a huge water line and canal to convey the raw water from one lake to another, which you also see the map early. It's a long, very long distance, 23 miles to be exact. And then to be treated at the Northeast plant, and then build the transmission line to convert from the plant to us. And we also have to build what we call the repump station. Why? Because when the water is conveyed from the Northeast plant to us, the pressure is already gone. So there is not enough pressure to serve you guys. So we have to build a pump station to put the water into the tank and repressurize them. That's why we call it a repump station. And for the 2010 system, we built one, which is called Jimmy Schindlerwolf Pump Station. That's near Spears Road. It used to be called Spears Road Pump Station. And the other one is newly built, much bigger, $100-some million. It's at the corner of 249 and Bellway 8. And so we have to build those repump stations, and we have some more to be built to serve future need, all for repressurizing purposes. Next, please. So here's why you're paying those fees. For the 30% conversion to meet the 2010 regulatory mandate, we spent approximately $500 million. And then after that was done, we immediately started the 60% conversion, and we have so far spent $2 billion. We still have about $900 million to project to be built. And then after that, we will actually immediately start it the 2035, which is 80% conversion. That will be at the cost of about $2.1 billion plus the $900 million, so total $3 billion to be spent. And those are those dollars are just huge, right? I mean, that's why we have to spread out among everybody within the service area. So that there is a question always asked, we're paying you fees, but we're not getting any benefit because we're not receiving a drop of surface water. Why? Here's why. In order for you to be able, because the rule apply area-wide, everybody is subject to that rule. If you are not using surface water, that means someone else is using surface water for you to afford you that privilege to continue to use groundwater. So if we only charge the mud who receive surface water, it will be grossly unfair to those people, nor they can afford it. So even if you're not receiving surface water, you are contributing to this cost. So all of you, whether you are on surface water or you are on groundwater, you are all paying into the funds that's paying back for the bond obligation that we borrowed from Texas Water Development Board, which is the state banker, if you will, issuing the SWIFT fund that I mentioned earlier. So to be further break down, next slide, please. The project costs, you can see the Loose Bayou project, that's for the raw water projects. The authority sure, those numbers you see there is only the North Harris County Regional Water Authority sure. The total cost is much more than that. Loose Bayou, our share is about $186 million. And for the Northeast Plan expansion, the total cost that I mentioned earlier is $2 billion, and our share is 35%, which is $687 million approximately. And then Northeast transmission line is 245, which represents about 55% of the cost. Then the transmission line by the authority, we have to build line from the east side of the boundary to the plan, that costs $319 million. And then the distribution system cost is $1.4 billion. So those projects clearly is very expensive. And so total for the conversion for the 60% is about $2.9 billion. So then now we get the water to you through all those systems. We have a contractor to operate the system for us, which is Infomark. So at this point, I'd like to turn over the presentation to Brian, who is the Infomark's operation manager for us.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate that. So we're going to talk a little bit about what to expect in the science of the water. So as Infomark is the operator, we're responsible for getting that water from the city of Houston out to your neighborhood. We'll be making those connections soon. So if we can start on this, move on to our next slide, please. So this is an example of a typical water well. This is what we would call groundwater. You have water that's sitting underground in a lot of rock. It's naturally filtered by the earth, and the majority of the water supply in suburban Houston was groundwater up until 2025. With that 60% conversion, we're moving to use more surface water. Most of the water you're going to get in the north side of Houston is going to be from the Evangeline or the Jasper Aquifer. Typically, you see these plants supplying a neighborhood. They take the well and they drill it. It's about 500 to 1,500 feet underground to access these aquifers. Like I said, you've got it naturally filtered by the earth, might have a little bit of alkalinity in it, but because it's naturally filtered, the treatment is mostly done underground. So we pull it up, we add 1 or 2 chemicals to it, and that's it. You know, very easy. Unfortunately, we're using a lot of it. A lot of people like the city of Houston. They're moving here, and so we do use a lot of water. We need an alternate source, and that brings us to surface water. So the next slide, please. So what's the difference with surface water? Well, much more complicated to treat. Comes from Lake Houston. Different type of disinfection, different type of chemicals are used. When I say more complicated, we can't just pull it out of the lake, add a couple of chemicals, and then send it across town. You have to go through a long treatment process. There's a diagram and a couple of slides that'll kind of go through that. But it requires a lot of monitoring, a lot of sampling, a lot of effort. And instead of just supplying a local neighborhood, you're moving it from the northeast side of town all the way across to neighborhoods like this. So the next slide, please. This is kind of just an outline of the process. Probably hard to read up there on the screen, but our process to get the water from the lake to you is that the city of Houston treats it at the Northeast Water Plant. They do all the disinfection, the treatment, the filtration. They put out safe drinking water. They then pump that to the North Harris County Regional Water Authority, where it goes to our pump stations, through our metering stations. Our operators check that water again, and we make sure it's continually safe to drink, and then we send it out to the water receiving facilities, which is what we call your neighborhood water plants, where it is checked again by the operator that operates in that neighborhood. So we are conveying that water from the city on the northeast side all the way to the neighborhood across town, following these steps. So the next slide, please. This is going to be a diagram of the Northeast Water Plant and their treatment process. Probably a little bit hard to see, but basic overview without getting too scientific on that is you have your lake, you pull water out of it, you inject a few different chemicals. We can't go from 1 or 2 anymore. I think there's 5 or 6 listed on this page. You mix it up with the chemicals really quickly, and then you let it sit, and the dirt kind of sticks together, and it all settles out, and you have kind of a clear water, but it's not done being treated yet. You've got to disinfect it now. So the city of Houston, at their new water plant, they use ozone. Now, ozone is kind of like the rock star and the water for an operator because it's flashy, it's expensive, and all of us are impressed by it because it's a it's a process where you shoot a lot of lightning through oxygen and you create ozone. Now, ozone has to be generated at the water plants. You can't just make it at a plant and then ship it. It has to be done on site. So you put it into the water, and ozone is by far one of the most effective chemicals for disinfection because it enters the water, it does its job, and then it disappears. It doesn't stay in the water. It destroys the cell walls of anything that's organic inside of the water, and then it's gone. So the water has been treated, everything in there is ready to be filtered out, and then they have to add disinfectant to move it along its way. So when they add disinfectant, that's to make sure that it continues to be safe on its journey across town to get to this. And so they treat the water, they go through this whole process, put it in the tank, and then it gets pumped to us. So the next slide here is going to be some authority facts. So within the boundaries of the authority, we have 150 participating districts within our groundwater reduction program. The whole area, which you've seen a map covers this whole area. About 766,000 people. And then as June was saying, we have about 144 million gallons per day available surface water to pump out to our system. And as we add more connections and expand, we'll be using more and more of that water. So next slide, please. Rundown of our North Harris County system. So we have 2 City of Houston metering stations where we first receive the water from the city. And then from those metering stations, it goes to our 3 water pump stations. June was talking about we have the Jimmy Schindewolf pump station, which used to be called Spears Road. We have the Allen Rendell pump station, which is on the newer side. Then we have Louetta pump station. All 3 of those are responsible for conveying that water, repressurizing it, retesting it, and getting it out to the neighborhoods. So by the end of this year, we're going to have over 80 water receiving facilities and 150 miles of installed water line in the ground. June was kind of going over how some of those pipes are 10 foot in diameter, 9 feet in diameter. There's some big pipes out there, all the way down to 12 inches. Wide range of different pipes, and just a really impressive system to get that water from one side of town to the other. So we have some pictures on the next couple of slides. This is an example of a metering station. Like I said, we first get that in from the city. The first point where it enters our system, and we can start testing and treating the water. So a couple pictures there. Next slide, please. It's going to be the Schindewolf pump station. This one came online about 2009, 2010. You can see pictured there those very large tanks. They are 10 million gallon water tanks where we store the water. Each one of these pump stations, they have backup power. They're designed to withstand storms. We want to make sure that as long as we have an available supply from the city of Houston, we'll be able to continue sending water out to the residents, to the mud districts. So Schindewolf is designed to withstand a storm, and it's very likely that during a hurricane, we probably have somebody monitoring these because we just want to make sure everything is going the way expected to. So next slide, please. It's going to be just a picture of the new pump station off of 249, Allen Rendell. This is standing in the parking lot. These are the lines from the booster pumps out to the main distribution system. And if you go to the next slide, it's an overview of the whole facility. So this is right near the end of construction. On the left-hand side there, you can see the emergency generators, the main building in the middle. That's where the pumps are, and the control room. And then in the back, there's a couple more ground storage tanks in the very corner of that picture. Those are 12.5 million gallon ground storage tanks. They're actually, I believe they're the largest functioning ground storage tanks in the state of Texas right now. And we have space to put more as the system continues to expand. Next slide, please. This is an example of your water receiving facility. So once it leaves the pump station, it goes through our 150 miles of transmission line, and it ends up above ground again at the neighborhood water plant. So this water receiving facility, we operate off of what we call level control. So you have a ground storage tank. You've seen them at these plants if you drive by, and it drops low enough, and that triggers our water to come on. So water starts to fill up, and then it shuts down when it's filled. The operator of the district, they set their chemical pumps, and so it continuously monitored, like I said, make sure it's safe, and that's how we operate our system. So let's talk a little bit about what these changes are going to be, what's coming. So next slide, please. This is going to be the changes that you're going to see. So groundwater, you've been probably drinking it for a long time. It's going to taste different. So surface water does not taste the same as groundwater. I'm not going to say one's better than the other. I personally prefer North Harris County surface water. I have to drink it every day, all week. So, that's what I prefer. But it's not bad. It's not good. It's it's a change. So you're going to notice that the water tastes different. It's just as clean and safe as always. There are multiple steps where operators are checking that water. So one's not safer than the other. It's just a lot more hands on the surface water side. A lot more people making sure that that water stays safe. You're going to see more hydrant flushing from your local operator. It's just part of the process. When we make the connection, they want to move that water through your whole system. So they're going to be flushing a lot. The change in disinfectant type requires that we flush more. We have a developed program for all that. So you may see more operators out there, but it's nothing to do with, anything negative. It's just what we have to do when disinfection is changed. You're going to see your water softening systems. If you've got one of those, there's probably going to be a change in alkalinity. So the water is not as hard as it is, because when you have groundwater, it sits underground and it gets some minerals in it. And if you have really high alkalinity, you'll notice, like if you leave a cup out on the counter, it'll have that white kind of powdery residue on it. You'll have to use something in your dishwasher. 61 doesn't have that water. It's on the lower on the alkalinity side, so we don't anticipate problems with blending, but it has been known to happen when there's a change in chemistry. Another big change is, because we are changing the disinfectant, we're going from what we call free chlorine, where we only feed chlorine to disinfect the water, to chloramines, where it's chlorine and ammonia. That requires people to be aware of some changes with that chemistry. The hospitals need to know that they need to remove the disinfectant when you're on dialysis. So it's not good for chloramine to enter the bloodstream. And so we need to notify the hospitals that there is a change happening. It is most likely that they're already removing the current disinfectant, but we want to make extra sure that we notify the hospitals this is happening so they can make sure that they're removing that. And then the same thing with fish tanks. I had some fish that I brought down when I moved from Central Texas back to Houston, where we didn't have a great residual up there, and I didn't need to add anything to the water. Well, I brought them back, and I did not add anything to the water, and unfortunately, the fish didn't make it. And I learned, as an operator, that you have to take the chlorine out of the water before you put your fish in. So chloramine is more resistant, more resilient. It stays in the water longer. So you want to make sure your fish are going to be okay and take the chlorine out if you're dealing with that. So next slide, please. Changes for some of you operators out there. You're going to notice this in your district. With the change in water chemistry, obviously you're going to have to increase your flushing program. There's going to be more testing, and I mentioned the alkalinity. If there's a big change, you may have to make some adjustments over at the wastewater plant. We don't want you to completely stop using your water well. We want you to run that on a schedule, maintain your chemical pumps, and then the other thing to know is that the valves that in the system, I have an example picture up here on the right-hand side, but we have some valves that are in 5-foot manholes, and then we have some that are in the same boxes that the Mud District uses for their valves. So just be aware, we generally write NHCRWA on our valve boxes, so you'll notice the difference, but if you're out there doing a valve survey or something, just make sure that they stay on the district valves and they don't touch the North Harris County valves. And next slide, please. I believe that does it for me. Contact information for all the folks involved in the presentation is listed on here. That's all I got.
Okay, we're going to get into general discussion right now, and we'll try to just kind of go through some. We'll come back on some of these topics, maybe dig in a little bit more on a specific issue that you might deal with as a resident. First off, I want to kind of go back to the infrastructure. Obtaining easements for these transmission lines and all these lines that are coming out June. Talk a little bit about the difficulty of that and how that's done.
Yeah, sure, Jerry. So I can imagine every resident, when someone knock on your door and say, I want to put a water pipe in your backyard, your first reaction would be, no, go away. I don't need that. I mean, it's understandable, right? But, I mean, it's also a necessity. So that's why the state actually created what they call public necessity, so that and the eminent domain power to give to the public agency, which means if the project is for the purpose of serving a broader public, then the individual rights will be curtailed to meet the broader good. So even though you have that power, it's not easy. We try not to step on anybody or force anybody, so we start negotiation. We try to reach a reasonable price to pay for the right to use their backyard in the easement. And most of the times we were able to reach agreement for a agreeable price. But some cases we have to go to the court to let the court decide. And that's where comes my responsibility to maintain the balance of keep the resident happy, also to safeguard the public funds. So the state, on the other hand, enacted especially in the recent legislation, enacted many legislation to protect private property owners' rights, which make the negotiation process much difficult and much longer, which translate to increase the cost. To just give you an example what I'm talking about, for the 2010 30% conversion projects, we usually get the easement acquisition done within 6 months. And now, if you're lucky, you get it done in 2 years. And the cost of the acquisition also significantly increased, because the more negotiation you want to do, the more attorneys you get involved, the higher the cost.
It's kind of a double-edged sword there.
It is.
I will compliment the authority. You guys were able to catch some of these corridors and run some of your big major trunk lines. Example, you guys might have seen going down Beltway 8, where the electric corridor is, that we were putting in some big pipes through there and several other pipeline easements and on and on.
Yeah.
So I'm going to need to get to a lightning round here. We're running a little behind.
Sorry.
So I'm going to hit some other topics.
Okay.
Thank you for that breakdown. Let's talk a little bit about water characteristics and what to expect. You'd kind of given a little bit, Brian, on that, but I can tell you, you're going to notice a difference. Surface water is different than the groundwater that you're used to. There is no doubt about it. As Brian said, it's safe. It goes through all of the criteria that the TCEQ and the EPA put forth. And so it's okay to drink, but it might taste a little different. It might smell a little different. It might even look a little different. And it's going to take you a little while to get accustomed to it. You want to add to that, Brian? It is softer.
That's right. It is softer. I'll say the other thing about surface water is that seasons can affect it, because there can be a change in the lake, which the city has a pretty thorough treatment process. So I would expect with the new Northeast plant that we will be less susceptible to things like that. But basically surface water does have that risk, just because groundwater, it's consistent, it's in the ground. But with the lake, you can have different things moving around. You can have a storm come through.
Big rain events.
That's
It's
right.
organic. Keep in mind, all of the runoff is going into the lake. It's coming from the rivers, that type of stuff. As June and Brian both pointed out, it's much more expensive to treat that water. There's a lot more to it than just pumping it with a well and a turbine type pump and a vertical turbine and bringing that water up, adding chlorine and maybe a phosphate. So there's definitely more expense to it, and it's coming our way. We're looking sometime in late October, early November is when you'll start receiving the water in our general area, the surface water. Let's talk a little bit about boiling water notices and how they work, because there's been a lot of confusion. I can tell you, as a general manager for Harris County Freshwater Supply District 61 for over 30 years, we've never had a boiling water notice. But when you get into surface water, there might be a higher potential that you might run into a boil water notice and how that works. It's important to note that the confusion has been with the media. They'll say there's a boiling water notice in the city of Houston or with the North Harris County or a particular lake or something, and all of a sudden everybody believes that they're on a boil water notice. Well, that's not necessarily the case. Your water purveyor will let you know. If it's District 61, we'll let you know you're on a boiling water notice. And a lot of times that's precaution. That's not necessarily a situation that you're definitely a problem with your water. It's the probability that there might be an issue due to some kind of circumstance that occurred. And so we're going to be cautious. We would rather err on giving you a boil water notice than the alternative. You want to add to that, Brian?
Jerry, you're absolutely right. You know, years ago, Lake Jackson had a boil water notice, and I had a lot of phone calls that said, are we affected? Do we need to boil the water? So really look into your local mud district is the best way to determine if your neighborhood is on a boil water notice. If the North Harris County ever has to go on a boil water notice, I would imagine we would have that information on our website, and we'll pass that down to the mud districts so they can notify the residents. So if you hear City of Houston, it will only affect you if your neighborhood is the one that's issuing the notice with that. But just because they say City of Houston doesn't always mean that your water is also under that same boil water notice.
And if you're confused and you want to contact us, please call your water district. They can tell you right away what the situation is if you hear something and you're not sure what's going on. June, why is there a difference in the North Harris County Regional Water Authority fee for customers using surface water or groundwater? Can you explain a little bit what that difference is? An example would be the rate. The rate, excuse me, explain the difference between groundwater and surface water costs that the customer will receive. We currently have, I believe it's a 45-cent difference. June, I was recently in a seminar and I've seen some statistics that just kind of throw you back. Somewhere around 1,250 people are moving to Texas every day. Every day. And you see it around here. The growth is phenomenal. They built 99 and you drive 99 and where did that neighborhood come from? Box stores, schools, you name it, it's there. It wouldn't surprise me we don't have another loop outside of 99 in the near future. That's how quickly we're growing. I've seen some of the subsidence, new studies. As soon as we get a well off, there's a new well being drilled farther out. And water, these aquifers, they don't know boundaries. If you've got someone sucking water upstream, per se, on that aquifer, you're still taking that water out of the ground. So we are still sinking. I mean, I've seen some of the statistics that show Katy, believe it or not, is in the spring area are some of the worst right now. And they're still sinking about right at 3 centimeters per year. And that's a little over an inch. I believe it's 2.5 centimeters equal 1 inch. Well, 10 years, equal up to a foot. So we can't get off surface water quick enough if we want to get away from flooding. You want to talk to that a little bit? Just talk louder, Gene.
They just done away with their regulation. So they told their people, pump it as much as groundwater you can. You're no longer under any regulation. Well, good for them, but bad for us. Guess what? When they take all the groundwater,
Here we go.
yeah, so when they pump all the groundwater from the aquifer, the water under our aquifer flow over to them. So in essence, in the recent study released by, they're not officially released, but they already show some of the results. The northern part of the Harris County is still, the subsidence in the northern part of Harris County, especially the one closer to the Montgomery County, still happening. And so my comments to the subsidence district is, so our residents is paying the price for those guys in the north. The answer is, yeah, essentially that's true. What can we do about that? Unfortunately, nothing. They're in different jurisdictions, they're different county. If their county decides they can do whatever they want, we are paying sort of price for their action.
Thank you, June. We're going to get into questions here in a minute. You'll have your opportunity. Give us time. I'd like to discuss the need to keep our groundwater wells in good condition and having that secondary source. You never know when you'll have to go back to your water wells. District 61 just reworked 4 of their wells to a tune of over $1 million, about $300,000 each. And we're happy to have done it. And we want our wells in great shape and ready to roll if we need them. Would you care to speak to that, either one of you?
Yeah, so we encourage all of our districts to use as much surface water as possible, but that doesn't mean neglect your well. So like Jerry, you were saying about 61, you keep your wells in good shape. We do want our operators to continue to keep their wells in good shape. And I also mentioned the chemical pumps, because if those sit for a long time without being maintained, that can cause an issue, as we've seen with some other operating companies that we've dealt with before. So we just want to make sure that everything is as good operating condition as possible. Both sources of water are available for the consumer, and we're not just overly relying on one side or the other. So
Yeah,
that
if anything happens to Lake Houston, you turn your wells on, and you're good to go. That's your secondary source. Do you have anything on that?
Nothing, you good.
Also, I'd like to speak to what a big deal the interbasin transfer was. Prior to this one being done, I don't know of maybe one other that had been done in history. They're not big fans of interbasin transfer.
No, they're not.
And to be able to take water from the Trinity and pump it into Lake Houston to be able to use was a big deal.
Yes, it is. I mean, that's human nature. Nobody wants somebody coming into your backyard to take something away from you, right? So interbasin transfer is always, or has always been, the most difficult water management strategy in the state of Texas. I mean, Chairman Perry advocating about this big water transfer from East Texas to West Texas. It didn't go anywhere in the last legislature.
Maybe a pipe dream?
I wouldn't say that. I just say it's very difficult. That's
Very
what-
difficult.
Yeah.
I think their thought was, I mean, prior to some of these big rain events, you were looking at, if you've been at Lake Travis or even Canyon Lake, I mean, they were down to record lows. It was basically a river, Lake Travis was. I think they were down like 70 or 80 feet. It was a lot. Fortunately, they did get some rain, and I think they're back up maybe 20 or 30 feet down, which is great. I don't think they've been there in a long time. But there's more rain in East Texas, more water in East Texas. Obviously, as you go farther west, there's less and less water. So the thought was big, but the cost is even bigger. As we seen moving east to west, and you just describing the cost related from taking water from Lake Houston and moving it out west to the West Authority, and how expensive it was. But that was a big deal for interbasin transfer. Let's speak to flushing the system, because we're talking about water, and you're going to see a lot of fire hydrants open, and you're going to see water, and you're going to be thinking, what's wrong? Why are these guys wasting all this water, flushing this water? Well, it's going to be necessary, and it might be more so at first as we get into surface water. You want to speak to that, Brian, and why?
Sure. So when we change the disinfection type, we start to use chloramines. So instead of one chemical, which is bleach, you have two chemicals together, and they hold up better in the water system than just chlorine. However, if they just sit in the line and don't move, they start to degrade. Basically, the more time from when it was added, the more it starts to degrade. And it's the operator's job to stay on top of that with a good flushing program, with good monitoring. What we don't want to see is everything start to fall apart and the ammonia starts to cause some issues out in the system. So to avoid that, that's why you're going to see increased flushing when surface water, it makes that connection. And so we just have to stay on top of it. And, it's usually about 2 to 3 times what you would normally flush in a free chlorine system when we make that change. But that's just part of the maintenance because we have changed that disinfection type.
So as we go into surface water initially, it is softer. Most of us out here with the inorganic water from our wells is going to be a harder water. It has a lot more calcium, and we have a lot of scale buildup on our pipes. And as this softer water comes in contact with that, it's going to break it down. So you might, even in the interior of your own house, you might get some discoloration. You might see some of this pipe starting to, or this buildup on the inside of the pipe start to break down. And that's normal, and that's to be expected, and you're going to notice some discoloration, and that's where a lot of this flushing will come about, even in our systems, the larger pipes and so forth. June?
Jerry, I want to add one thing. Now we talk about, it sounds funny, but it wasn't funny at the time. It was the 2023 summer, and you may all recall it's very hot and dry summer. And we have one of our transmission line project, and they were flushing the line because they have to disinfect the water in the pipe after they pressure test the pipe so that the pipe can be ready for use for drinking water. As the contractor is released the water into the ditch, I get a very angry call from a resident, and immediately followed by all the medias, and saying because the authority at the time issued a water conservation step 2, which limit the number of days the resident can water in your yard. So of course they upset. You don't let me use water, but here's the water going down to the drain. So after we find out what's going on, we explain to the TV station, the newspaper. So the moral of the story is, if you see water is draining to the ditch, call your water district first. And if they tell you it's the authority's line, call the water authority, and we will investigate. We will take care of it before you call the media, because they don't know. When they tell them, hey, they're wasting water, they get excited, especially during the summer. So
Yeah, most of this flushing is we're trying to prevent from having aesthetic problems. Taste and odor usually is the issue, potentially color. And we're trying to get that out of the system where you don't experience inside your home. All right. Cost of water, I can tell you it's going to get more expensive. It's definitely it's going up. There's no doubt about it. You can plan on it. I like to kind of use the analogy. You go get your coffee at Starbucks. You pay $5-6 for a cup of coffee. Well, some people do. I don't either. But you get the analogy. Water, if you've been like in some of the western areas where water is very difficult to come by, we get water relatively cheap compared to other cities who Austin, San Antonio. You even go farther out west than that. Comparable to what we pay for water is very cheap compared to what they pay. And if you look at it, comparable rates and so forth. But that is going to change. Anybody tell you that the water rates are not going up, I don't think they're being honest with you. How far they go up is yet to be determined. We're up against a disincentive fee. A disincentive fee is the hammer that the subsidence district has as leverage if we don't meet their objective or their mandate. And I think it's, what is it, $13.10 or something like that now? It goes up every year. Yeah, $12, $13. It changes yearly. If we don't meet their requirements and convert to surface water, then on top of what you pay right now will be a $13 fee per 1,000 gallons. We're trying to avoid that by meeting the mandate. June, would you like to speak to that?
said it.
I did.
If we don't meet the mandate, then we will be subject to the disincentive fee.
And that's everybody within the groundwater plan.
Correct.
The
Yeah,
GRP.
Yeah, because the regulatory agency allowed the authority to use what we call aggregated well permit. So your individual mud districts is no longer subject to that rule individually. So when we not meet the conversion requirement as a whole, that's the North Harris County Regional Water Authority aggregated well permit, then everybody pays that. So that's what we try to avoid.
Very good. We're right back on time. That was good. 7:38, so we've got about 15 minutes or so, or 20 minutes. We'd like to go to questions. Mr. Todd Burr here is going to run around with the mic. If you'll raise your hand, he'll come to you. And if you could please state your name, maybe what district or where you live, and ask your question. If we can answer your question, we'll do it. If we need to get back to you, we'll do that as well.
My name's Pat Collins, and we're in Mud 61. I've got two questions. One, when you switch over October, November, are we going to receive a notice, or is this just going to be figured out on your own?
Well, we've just kind of adopted a new system where we're sending out text and emails, and so we'll certainly do that. We've sent out letters, and of course we're here today letting you know that that's coming. So we will do our best to let people know a week or so before we convert over.
Okay, the second question is a multi-part. Wanted to know about your completion on your projects. You showed us all these projects up here. You've got the pipe, the new plant, the transition line, and the interconnection basin. What percentage are you complete on those?
All the regional, what we call the regional project. Can you guys hear me? Okay. So what we call the regional project, like the interbasin transfer project, the expansion plan, and the transmission line, they are all complete. The only thing we are still working on is the distribution system.
So I have a couple of questions. I'm Mud 61. I've been living in my home for 20 years, and I have never had one problem with my water. The problems I'm hearing coming are water quality, like brown water, smelly water, particles in the water. I'm seeing people's, like if you're washing your clothes at this point and your water's brown, all your white clothes is going to come out brown or dirty, yellow. Low water pressure, leaks at the meter, boiling water notices that I've never had in 20 years. Now you're going to be flushing, you know, the hydrants. And because if you don't flush them, then there's going to be particles in my water. And depending if you're in a cul-de-sac and what is near that fire hydrant, some of those people are going to be struggling.
So let me address that. I'm the GM for District 61. 20 years, no problems, music to my ears. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
We are still the water purveyor. Your water district will be the one providing the water. We just have a new water source. And the hope is that once we all get acclimated, we make sure we know where we need to flush, any dead ends. We get our chemical feed systems just right, and we start purring, and you have minimum problem, and we adjust to the taste. And we go along like we always had. That's the hope. That's where we think we'll be. I think
I don't see it.
you're going to need to be a little patient. I can tell you that you've got a good team with District 61.
I have one. I have had one so far. But I don't see it in the future, only because of the, you know, I'm listening to what you're mentioning. And also, will we in the future also, like right now, we don't have a management company, which is great. I love that we don't. But are you going to consider that in the future? Because I'd rather us not.
No, we're committed to, we run it like a city would. You have your own people. District 61 manages its own stuff. And I can assure you we'll be on top of it doing a good job.
Jerry, I'd like to clarify. Don't be panic. The different taste doesn't mean you will get bad taste of water. And as Brian explained earlier,
I'm not too concerned about the taste, only because I don't drink the water. I don't.
Still,
But I do want to, because it's water coming to me and to you.
I'm trying
And
to,
I've had zero problems in 20 years.
I'm trying to address your comments to the general audience here. Everybody should hear me. When Brian talking and Jerry talking about different tastes, doesn't mean the surface water tastes bad. They all taste different because when you filtering the surface water for treatment, you filter out all the minerals. Therefore, when you drink groundwater, it has this sweet taste because the mineral in there. When you drink surface water, because the mineral is all filtered out, it doesn't have that sweet taste. And it is much softer for surface water. So first of all, there's no discoloration for surface water or groundwater. If I give you 2 cups of water, you will not see any difference in color. The surface water actually has much better water quality than groundwater. And we actually, in annual American Water Works Association conference, they have taste competition. Groundwater and the surface water competition, they are mixed. Nobody knows whether that is groundwater or surface water. Guess what? They all have surface water winners and groundwater winners. Again, like Brian said earlier, it's personal preference. Some people like the taste of sweetness, some people doesn't, but they are all meeting the standard of the water quality. And the another reason we use ozone instead of the traditional water treatment technology is because, as Brian mentioned earlier, every summer, Lake Houston has those water quality issues. Before the new plant is complete, they don't have ozone. They only have traditional water treatment technology. The people did notice discoloration and fall odors. With the new plant, summer of 2024, we have no complaints. So that doesn't happen. And we will continue to keep the water.
Let me add one more thing to answer my neighbor's question. Why do I care about the water if I don't drink it? Because I work for a management company that manages like 16 districts, and they use this water. And I hear all the complaints about it. All the complaints that come in, I'm the one that's the customer service representative that assists them, and there's never any answers. That's why I'm concerned. I don't want, sorry.
Well, your complaint apparently is before you receive surface water, so you need to talk to your individual mud district, not the authority, because you haven't received the surface
I
water.
haven't, but I just don't want any problems in the future because I haven't had any in the past 20.
So my business card is out at the table there. Please grab it, and I'll be more than happy to visit with you. Let's move on.
I'm just confused about the Montgomery County. If this is either a state or a U.S. mandate to go to this new system, and you're telling us that we are going to be paying for everybody that's fleeing and growing in Montgomery County, I can't believe there's not some recourse either through the courts to make it fair, because there's no way that Harris County should be paying for the existing and the humongous growth that's going on in Montgomery County. To say there's nothing we can do about it, I don't believe that's true. If this is a state mandated or U.S., whatever it is, I'm a little confused on who is mandating this whole project, whether it's state or, but there is something that can be done. We do not want to pay for all the water that Montgomery County is going to receive. That's ridiculous.
It's not the water they receive.
Let me first clarify. Montgomery County groundwater usage is not entirely responsible for the subsidence occurred in Harris County. They contributed to the subsidence in our region. And secondly, to answer your question, the state mandate is county specific. So the Harris County, the actual name is Harris-Galveston County Subsidence District, only have the jurisdiction over Harris County and Galveston County, not Montgomery County. Montgomery County in the early years has what they call the Lone Star Groundwater Management District. They actually have a rule to curtail the use of groundwater as well. But that changed several years ago. And eventually, they decided to do away with that rule. Now, if the residents or the legislators in Harris County somehow can make that happen, then everything goes away. But the likelihood that happened in Harris County is very slim to none.
And the point I was making was that even though we have boundaries, the aquifer doesn't. And the aquifer's running south. And so if people are pulling more water northern from us, then that's less we have to take before we start to get sinkage. And
Yeah.
it is, we're going to need legislation to force
Well,
an issue.
and I said earlier, there's nothing we can do because the state of Texas have a very strong property owner's right. It's called right of capture. So if you own the property, you have the right to capture whatever under your property. So if they pump groundwater, that's well within their property rights to do that. Nobody can tell them you cannot do that.
They're at a higher elevation than we are. And so they're not feeling the sinkage like we are, although there is some subsidence going on in the Montgomery County area.
They
But
just choose. I think there's a question.
if she's got a question.
There's a big dig going on
You're fine.
over at Jones Road near 1960. Is that part of this? It's a huge dig. Oh, it's flooding. Okay.
No, at Jones Road in 1960, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, on Jones Road, just north of 1960.
Yeah, that's a big major pipe water line coming in.
That's part of this thing.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, you've seen them. If she's talking about pipe going in, big pipe, that's the Regional Water Authority going through there. Yeah, that's where the old golf course used to be. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just trying to respond to her question. She said big pipe going in the ground is this water coming your way?
Okay. So that's going to be part of going into
Yes, ma'am.
61.
Yeah.
My name's Scott Woodard. I'm with 248, and there's about 9,800 estimated residents in the Harris County area that are polycystic kidney disease patients. Polycystic kidney disease is a renal disease that is obviously going to have some sort of impact from this, correct? Consumption of these chemicals, the chlorine and the chloramine, that's going to be in the water supply from now on, that also affects the dialysis patients. So it's kind of a two-part, if you don't mind. The part of it is polycystic kidney disease patients. It does affect my home. My wife has already had 2 kidney transplants. My kids might have PKD because it's hereditary, and I've only got 1 kidney left because I donated her first kidney transplant. So this is something that affects almost 10,000 people in the area. Maybe that's a drop in the bucket to the millions of people we actually have, but it's no small number, right? The other part of that is you did mention that you're going to be reaching out to the hospitals. Of course, they have to go through specific processes for dialysis patients. What's the remedy for the dialysis patients that are at home, and how attainable and affordable is that for them on their fixed income?
Well, I don't know about, I don't think I can answer the home dialysis. I'm not sure about that information, but I do know that at the hospitals, they should be removing the disinfectant already. Unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you. I can find that out and get that to you, but I don't have the answer to that one. I do know that the hospitals do already remove the disinfectant from the water, but the fact that when we add chloramines, it's more resilient than free chlorine. So we want to make sure that the hospitals are aware of that. So if for some reason they're not doing that, which they should be, they're aware, because chloramines is more resilient than free chlorine.
So I would tell you to talk to your doctor and your equipment provider. They're used to this. This is just because surface water's coming to us now doesn't mean it's not everywhere else. So they're dealing with it, but we're certainly not experts per se on dialysis. Don't even want to pretend to be. It is serious. That's why we're mentioning it. I would talk to your doctor, and I would talk to whoever the machine is provided and what they do. More than likely, they're going to have some filtration type setups and give you some protocol on how to deal with that. And please feel free to grab my card if I can help you in any way and do some research. I'd be more than happy to do that. Yes, sir.
Bob Tierney in Timberlake. Are
Hi,
my
Bob.
galvanized pipes going to be happy to see this surface water?
So, well,
Do I need to repipe my house?
Probably so. You know, galvanized is kind of held together by don't look at it, and it's fine probably. But the goal of the, you know, I talked a lot about the different chemicals that are added and the long, complicated treatment process. But what it comes down to is the city is making this water as stable as possible with these new treatment things that they put in at the Northeast Water Plant, the new treatment options. The water is very stable, and so if there's not a major difference in characteristics, then a lot of times you'll see that those problems might not happen, you know, for a while, which galvanized is. If you've got galvanized, it was probably put in the 80s. So 60s, well, it could be even earlier. Maybe 80s is hopeful. So, you know, that stuff probably already needs to be changed, and the only thing that's holding it together is the corrosion that's already in there because nobody's looked that direction yet. So I would anticipate that there's probably, because anytime there's any change, you're going to see something. But with the current water, very stable. So what we hope ultimately is that with the efforts that the Mud District goes to with the flushing and the city goes through with the treatment and our testing and all this, is that when the water does blend together, it's going to be as stable as possible without causing these big upsets.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, unfortunately, if you've got galvanized pipe, it was put in probably in the 70s, and it's seen its life cycle. And if you hadn't already planned to replace your pipe, you should. I will say the water is more stable than it was in the 2010. They've done some different things that will help in that situation. But as we mentioned, it is a softer water. There are some advantages to the softer water. If you're used to spots on your dishes and your sinks and things of that sort, that won't be as prevalent. You won't see that anymore with the softer water. Your hot water heaters and all of your appliances that have any kind of water contact with all of that calcium, it burns out your burners and its problems. With the softer water, that'll fall out before it gets to you in a lot of situations, so you won't have that problem. But as we mentioned before, once this water comes in contact with our existing pipe, we are going to see some breakdown of some of the buildup on the interior wall. And depending on the age of your galvanized pipe, in a lot of cases, the only reason you're not leaking right now is because of the buildup on the interior of the wall of the pipe. Now, we still will do different types of treatment, maybe some phosphates. We add that at 61. Other districts may or may not, to help coat the pipe and help with any type of corrosion. So hopefully that helped answer your question. Yes, sir.
Hello, Nicole Beechner, Mud 61.
Hi,
It's kind of
Nicole.
a follow-up. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, as a follow-up to his question, if we were to get home filtration systems, would that prevent any breakage of our interior of the pipes, or?
No, I don't
Yeah,
think so.
in fact, I'm glad you asked that question. One advice to all of the residents is if you are going to switch from groundwater to surface water, take that water softener you already have out. You don't need that anymore.
Not a water softener, but a filtration system to try to filter out the chloramine and the chlorine and
No, I
all
don't
the
think it
chemicals
will
that are going to be in there to
will
make it
help
soft.
with your, if you have old galvanized pipe. I don't think it's going to help that
I have
much.
copper, so
You
how
have
about
copper pipe. That's probably better than old galvanized pipe. But some of the charcoal filters and different things that they have, people like them and they're good. But as far as helping your piping out after that, I don't think so.
that? Okay.
We've got a few more minutes. We're trying to get to everybody. We promised the church we'll be heading out at 8. We 7:59. We'll try to get a few more questions in. Wait, she says we're okay.
So
Okay.
will the charcoal filters remove the chloramine for those people that have kidney problems.
I think
And,
that's, I'm not an
w-
expert on that, but charcoal will remove chlorine, and that's one of the processes, I believe. But you need to look into that from your specialist, doctor, or whoever the kidney machine is coming from. Did that answer your question? I'd like the charcoal as long as you keep them clean in general. They can have their own bacteria bed if you don't clean them. They can be problems. But they will remove chlorine.
Hi, I'm Bruce, and I live in the Pitcairn subdivision. In your graph, I think I saw in 2035, you want your goal is 80% of conversion. Will that goal ever be 100%? And if not, why not?
Well, the 80% is set by the districts, right, the regulatory agency. So we are not converting every mud because that will be too expensive. So what we do is we try to address the easiest one, the most cost-effective one first, and then go from there. But once we convert you, we want you to convert to 100%. It is good for us because we don't want you to use 80 or 30 or 60, wherever the timeline is, because that doesn't help the other people who has not been converted. We want you to over-convert for your district so your neighbor district can continue to use groundwater. And it's also beneficial to you guys because you don't want to mix groundwater and surface water in your districts. So if you have surface water, use surface water. You will have less water quality issues.
Hi, my name's Donald. I'm with Freshwater 61. So maybe I'll get with you, Mr. Holman, afterwards.
Okay,
with some other,
please,
I have
Phil.
quite a few, but
Okay.
if I want to kind of wrap up kind of my transmission questions, I think you already spoke to the redundancy that that's going to be done locally with the towers we already have or the tanks we already have. So in a case of outage, that supply is still available. Did I
Yeah.
understand that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And as far as the testing on source, the MUDs or the local are also testing in addition to the central plant at the lake? Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
And what time frame is that being done on? Is that like a periodic like it is today? Will it be done more frequently, less frequently?
It's done daily.
It's daily, yeah.
But that would be at the plant. I'm just wondering about, there's 25 miles between the plant and here from where we've been getting our water.
Right. So
And that's a long way for something to happen. And so I'm just wondering, at each local kind of distribution, is that still going to be occurring?
that's correct. At the Northeast Water Plant, they test it pretty much hourly. They have analyzers. They have people watching it. When it leaves the plant and gets to the North Authority, we're testing it every day. We're out there in the system testing multiple locations, multiple places. And then when it finally gets to the Mud District, a third operating person is also testing it every day. So all along there, the water is being tested and monitored by your operating company, and then 2 additional parties to that.
All right, and that testing includes testing not only for what you're expecting to find, but things that might be introduced that shouldn't be there?
There's a sample schedule that the city of Houston follows. The North also has one. So the thing, that's right. The state comes out, they do samples. The EPA comes out, they do samples. There's a schedule. If you go online to the TCQ Water District database, it's Drinking Water Watch. On the Drinking Water Watch, you can actually see all of the things that are tested in a mud district. So there's a schedule, and we have to test different chemicals. Like you said, things that may not be tested daily, but every year there's something extra that gets added on that we're testing for.
Yeah,
All right.
please get with me. Yeah, I'm accessible. You know where the office is. You can call me. I'm going to have to wrap this up. I apologize. I told them 8 o'clock. We're at 8:05. All right, we got one more question.
How will this affect pool owners? What do they need to do to prepare?
Pool owners?
No changes for pool owners.
Could be the same. I would like to thank everybody for coming tonight. Thank you very much. There'll be more information to come. Please reach out to, you can go to the North Harris County Regional Water Authority's website. There's a lot of great information. You can go to Harris County Freshwater Supply District 61 website. We'll continue to update you. Thank you to the Cypress Methodist Church for allowing us to use their facility. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We really appreciate it. Y'all have a safe trip home.